Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my D&D 2024 player class series. With this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the Bard class from the D&D 2024 Player's Handbook, including class breakdown, differences between the 2014 version, my top 5 species and backgrounds, my personal subclass rankings, and if you stick around till the end, I'm going to build a brand new Bard character using the 2024 rules via the Roll20 character monster. If you enjoy these videos and want to support my channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. The Bard is listed as high complexity, which I would agree with. They are a full caster, so that automatically should make them a high complexity, although I'm noticing the cleric is actually only average. I'm kind of side-eyeing that. But the Bard is a tricky caster, and we'll go into why that is. Primary ability is Charisma. Should be pretty obvious, as the Bard is always going to be the talkative face of the party, and their spellcasting is tied to their Charisma. And you should play the Bard if you like performing. Yeah, technically, although I think it's an argument you could also make Bards maybe in slightly different ways. Maybe like a yeah, I guess you're always performing as a bard. You're always the center of attention. You're kind of the pick-me character. If you've got the high charisma, I guess that is kind of baked into it. But I would argue mechanically, I get why they're doing it thematically, perhaps. Mechanically, I think you should play the bard if you like being the support of the party. You can choose subclasses that maybe make you a different kind of a bard. But in general, you're defined by your spell list and your bardic inspiration, and those are both going to trend towards being a support caster and a party member. So if you enjoy having that kind of a role, including being a healer, but not necessarily, then I think the Bard is for you. D8 hit die makes you fairly average. You're certainly not a frontline with the D10 or Barbarians D12. Your saving throw proficiencies, Dexterity and Charisma. Dexterity is a fantastic one to get a save for. Charisma, probably the worst one to have as a save because there's hardly any. We haven't seen the new monster manual yet, granted, but there's hardly any saves that actually target the charisma. Skill proficiencies, you are the most flexible character in the player's handbook. You can choose, first of all, 3 skills instead of 2. I think everybody else can choose 2. And you can choose any skills versus every other character has a list of, maybe 4, 5, or 6 different skills. Probably more like 6 that they can choose from. Instead, the Bard's like, you can choose whatever skills you want, which you are literally there's an ability here called Jack of all trades. You are going to be the most skilled character. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be the best fighter, the best spellcaster, the best of anything. Again, definition of Jack of all trades. But you're probably not going to be the worst at anything either. Tool proficiencies, choose 3 musical instruments. 1 is probably enough. Most people that play a musical instrument can maybe play that one and maybe also like piano, but like musical instruments are very different from each other. Just because you have talent in one doesn't mean you can do another one, but fine. If you need 3, that's fine. Armor training is only light armor. Again, with the D8 and light armor, you're not exactly frontline, but we'll get into the subclasses a bit later. 90 gold puts you, I think, right around average in terms of the starting equipment, or of course you can choose daggers and leather armor, which again is not very good for being in the front line, perhaps as a rogue. But I would argue charisma is obviously your number 1 ability. You cannot make a bard without good charisma because you are a full spellcaster, and that's where all your spellcasting comes from. So you need to have your highest stat is charisma, and we already went over that. Your second highest, I would probably argue, is dexterity, because that's just a great, it's your armor class, it's your initiative, it's so many important dex saves. And then probably Constitution as number 3, because as a major spellcaster with a lot of concentration abilities, you're going to want to have good concentration saves, as well as, just hit points are good in general. Everything else is kind of additional fluff, although intelligence can be very good for a bard because you've already got a lot of good skills, and intelligence is triggered off the most amount of skills, I believe, still. So that could make you just even better at doing various skills. Honestly, the Bard is not very much changed from the 2014 version. You still have, it's still defined by Bardic Inspiration, which, all right, I'm going to go off on a bit of a rant here. I get why they didn't want to reinvent the Bard for this half step of D&D, but I am not a big fan of how the Bard is done in 5th edition. Raise your hand if you played the original EverQuest. 25 years ago, whenever it came out, although it's still going technically. I loved how that MMORPG did the Bard, where you had like a new song you learned every level, and the songs were party-wide buffs or sometimes debuffs or even direct damage, and you activated them and they just kept going, and then you could even overlap them through this little kind of weird mini game where you could stop one and start another one. You could do up to like 3, I think, at a time. It felt really different from playing a traditional caster, and you were again that very supportive, like party, friendly character class. I really loved how that game did the Bard, and not until I think I played like Pillars of Eternity did I discover another game that did the Bard class in a really cool way. And in that case, they called it a Chanter, and they had their own I forget what they called it. They're like verses you could do, which had different party-wide buffs or debuffs. And then after you did a number of those, you could then do like the chorus. I'm probably mistakenly remembering all the different names. And then that would have like some kind of major effect, like you would summon up creatures or do some big damage or something. It was, again, a really cool feature that felt wholly unique, and like with weaving magical songs to create effects. The 5e Bard is just a spellcaster, which, yeah, spellcasting is great in 5e, but we already have a lot of spellcasters. So you're going to hear a lot of me just kind of sighing and grumbling about how I think the Bard is a hugely missed opportunity. And I even didn't mind like I think it was the 3.5 edition Bard, which had kind of like song effects that you could, start and stop it. Back in the day, it was like a +1, AC to everybody, and then a +1 damage. It was kind of an ongoing like effect they could have. Instead, Bardic Inspiration, which again is unchanged from the 2014 version, is a single targeted ability. Oops, I already skipped it because you get it level 1. That you give to somebody, and it's a dice that they can then add that dice to any d20 test they basically make. So as a bonus action, you have to be within 60 feet of somebody. Your number of Bardic Inspirations are tied to your Charisma modifier, by the way, which again, you want your high Charisma. And then you confer that onto an ally, or I guess any creature, but an ally. And then they can then roll that die whenever they make a d20 test, which includes ability checks, saving throws, or attack rolls, which is nice, and it's cool that it scales basically equal to like a monk's damage, d6 during tier 1, d8 during tier 2, and so on. The big difference, by the way, between this and the 2014 version is that Bardic Inspiration now lasts for 1 hour instead of 10 minutes, which is pretty nice, especially in the early levels when your Bardic Inspirations only come back on a long rest, which I really wish that was the thing they fixed. Because yes, at level 5, they finally open up where you get them all back on a short rest. But during the early level, like, you want to be at least giving out your Bardic Inspiration constantly. I mean, it's a bonus action, it's a free thing. You feel like that's your big support thing, but it's only a single person, so you feel like you need to give out more of them. But you only have probably between 2 and 4 per long rest. Granted, you're probably long resting more in the lower levels, but I wish they had done that partial recharge thing, which we saw like on Rage, for example, that you at least got 1 back on a short rest. Instead, it's all back on a long rest for the first 4 levels of your career. And then at level 5, you finally get them back all on a short rest, and I believe that's when they scale up to a D8. So also at level 5, by the way, they added the ability to expend a spell slot to regain 1 use of Bardic Inspiration. That does not seem like a good trade-off, because spell slots are still per long rest, and Bardic Inspiration becomes per short rest here. Maybe if you're higher level and you've got all those extra first level spell slots that you probably don't use by the time your next long rest comes by, that could be useful, and for some reason you're not short resting very often, but that seems like a bad trade-off, to where I would almost rather see one of the spell classes do the opposite of that, and like, hey, let's turn our Bardic Inspiration into like, a sorcery point kind of situation. Spellcasting is still the same. You have your own spellcasting table as a bard, which I guess we can look at that. Yeah, you go up to 9th level spellcasting, so you're a full caster. The spells, if you look at them, are mostly arcane, but with a few clerical support spells, mainly the healing spells that you have, Healing Word and Cure Wounds. You don't have necessarily like the Bless and the Shield of Faith and those kind of things. You have a lot of the utility spells and a lot of crowd control spells. You don't have a lot of the damaging elemental spells, so you're not going to be the DPS caster. Obviously, if you want to be the DPS caster, you want to be a sorcerer first and foremost. If you want to be an everything caster, you'll be a wizard. Bard is probably most similar to the wizard, but without a lot of the damaging spells. Doesn't mean you don't have any damaging spells. You have Shatter, you have Thunder Wave. Dissonant Whisper is probably still one of the best single target damage spells that the Bard has, but mostly what you're going to be doing are the kind of crowd control effects I think are the most useful. Maybe occasionally a buff, but like Confusion, Charm Monster, Hypnotic Pattern is amazing. Fear is really dang good. Stinking Cloud. These are all very powerful command abilities to like shut down enemies in different ways. So that's again why your concentration is very useful, because all of these things involve concentration. Hold Monster later on. You do get some good damaging spells like Synaptic Static, but yeah, that's you're again mainly doing crowd control or utility spell casting. And if that's not your jam, then maybe don't play a Bard, is what I would argue. Otherwise, a lot of the other stuff is pretty much the same. We do need to mention the fact that Song of Rest has been completely removed in the 2014 edition. Every time the party short rested, and I guess long rested, everybody got to roll an extra dice, which weirdly didn't quite scale with the Bardic Inspiration. I think it was a slightly different scaling mechanism, but it was just like kind of an extra hit die roll for every time anybody regained hit points. That was just, hey, the one like AoE like healing thing you got, and it was with all bards baked into the main class. That got completely removed for the 2024 edition, which is odd because we usually don't see a lot of abilities that are just straight up gone. Instead, if you look at the feats, it's basically listed as the chef feat, which is unfortunately not one of the origin feats, so you can't start with it because it requires level 4+, but it's essentially the same thing where you're preparing food, and on a short rest, as long as any creature eats the food and spends one or more hit dice, they can regain an extra 1d8 hit points, which is effectively what Song of Rest was. It also increases your con or wisdom score by 1, and you get the cooking tools. So I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it's interesting they made it a feat instead of baked into the Bard class, so anybody can have this effect, but it also is not an origin feat, so you can't start with that. Also, even if you start as human, you can't start with it because it's a requirement of level 4+. You literally can't take it until you're at least level 4, which Song of Rest, I forgot when that came online originally, but I think it was fairly low level. Expertise is still the same, where you gain basically double proficiencies on 2 of your skills. Jack of all trades means you add half proficiency to all of your skills. So by level 2, you've just got really good skill checks on everything. Unless you had a really bad intelligence score, you're going to be pretty dang good at all of your various skills. Counter Charm is different. At level 7, I know we're skipping ahead a little bit, but the subclass we'll get to. ASI is obviously, we already talked about how level 5 you get all your Bardic Inspiration on a short rest, which is very good, to where I feel like that should have just been at level 1 probably. Let me get them back on a short rest. Give me a break. Counter Charm, instead of it being, so in 2014, I believe it was like a full action to act as like an AoE thing that protected your allies. Now it is a reaction that you use if anyone within 30 feet of you fails a saving throw, specifically against effects that are charmed or frightened, which, by the way, includes Hypnotic Pattern. If you look at the legalese of Hypnotic Pattern, it mentions the fact that it does charm everybody in order to incapacitate them, so that would protect them against those spells, obviously like a Fear. But you can use a reaction to cause the save to be re-rolled. Oh, also for you, not necessarily just for allies. That also works for you. Use your reaction to re-roll the save, and with advantage. That's awesome. I'm surprised they had that advantage and not just like having to spend a Bardic Inspiration for anything, but you don't. So there's no actual cost to this. It's just that it costs your reaction. So pretty good, but it is disappointing that, again, I wish the Bard was more of an AoE, effect with affecting everybody. It just feels weird that like you're the big performer, but you're only specifically targeting one person at a time with your performance. That feels very strange for somebody who's, again, like the pick-me character and is all about performing, but instead it's like Bardic Inspiration, only one person, Counter Charm, only one person. So that's just a weird rant that I'm going to continue on. Magical Secrets is still the same. You learn 2 spells from anybody, so that allows you to expand suddenly and take, your fireballs or whatever other powerful, crazy spells you want to take from either Cleric, Druid, or Wizard spell list specifically, and they count as spells for you. You get your Epic Boon at level 19, which before those didn't exist. Superior Inspiration is now at 18 instead of 20, so it's no longer a capstone ability. It was such a funny capstone where when you roll initiative, you regain uses of Bardic Inspiration until you have 2. If you have fewer than that, it used to be 1. Just a hilariously weak capstone. Now it's a level 18 ability. It's slightly better, I guess, although, again, you shouldn't have any problem short resting getting them all back. Level 20 of a new capstone where you can always have Power Word Heal and Power Word Kill spells prepared. These are 9th level spells. Power Word Heal auto restores all of an ally's hit point or any creature's hit points. Power word kill automatically kills an enemy if they have fewer than 100 hit points, or it does like just a crap ton of damage. This ability says when you cast either spell, you can target a second creature with it if that creature is within 10 feet of the first target. So obviously killing multiple enemies if they're near each other, or fully healing, I guess, to allies if they're near each other. Again, just super casting 9th level spells. That's fine. It speaks to the fact that a lot of the Bard effects are just spells, and it annoys me. I'm not going to stop ranting about it because it is annoying. But yeah, that's the Bard. There's just no lot of change between the old Bard, which I guess they thought was fine. Well, we'll get into it tomorrow when we talk about like subclasses and stuff, but I think the Bard has such cool potential in RPGs, and I've played video game RPGs, which, by the way, somebody is probably going to be like, oh, Eric, this, one of Pathfinder's 47 classes does the Bard exactly how you want it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to pay attention to that. But I am disappointed in the Bard that it wasn't changed anymore, and this wasn't a chance to like reconfigure how the Bard works. I feel like just having it fall back on being a full cast, it didn't even feel like a rogue wizard hybrid like it did back in the day. Now it just feels like you are a full caster who just has like kind of you've lost a lot of you've lost all the elemental spells and gained some of the like cleric healing spells, and then you've got the Bardic inspiration mechanic. They just like that, and I guess maybe other folks like that. If you go ahead and give me a rant in the defense of the 5e Bard, and I will hear that defense. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't play a Bard. By the way, I have played a Bard before in a couple of our one-shots. College of Valor specifically, which was a Rockstar Bard, which, funny enough, is now mostly applied to the College of Glamour. So let's go into the subclasses for Bard. I'm going to go over each one individually, and then I'll do my full ranking. So first we have one that is brand spanking new. Again, I'm not paying attention to the Unearthed Arcana, so maybe it was in there. This is the College of Dance, which is sort of a unique monk hybrid of the Bard, which is not something I was picturing that the Bard was going to go in. So for the College of Dance, you gain unarmored defense similar to a monk or barbarian, except it scales off of your charisma. So your base armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity and charisma modifiers. That's automatically going to be way better because before you only had light armor, right? You had light armor, which could add your dex. By the way, with College of Dance, you're definitely going to want a good dex modifier because suddenly all these things scale off of dex. Whenever you use Bardic Inspiration as part of any of your actions, bonus actions, or reactions, which I'm glad the legalese said that specifically because there are different ways of using your Bardic Inspiration. You can expend it in all these different manners, although a lot of the subclasses, then, which are incompatible if you choose this one, are ways you would spend it, I think, as an action. You can make a free unarmed strike as part of that same, like, for example, you're most commonly going to use it as a bonus action to give out Bardic Inspiration. You can then make an unarmed strike, and your unarmed strike can scale off of dex, similar to a monk. And it deals damage equal to your Bardic Inspiration die. Again, similar to a monk, because I just talked about how the Bardic Inspiration die scales like a martial arts die from the monk. So it starts off as a d6 plus your dexterity modifier, but then by level 5 it goes up to a d8. So that's, again, makes you very similar to a monk, basically, that you get these free attacks, or obviously you can just use an action to do those attacks as well. You also get an advantage on performance checks you make that involves dancing. You're already gonna have a really good performance anyway. That's all at level 3. The level 6 features, you get 2 of them. One of them is that you can use a reaction and expend a Bardic Inspiration. So that's an example of how, again, you could use your free unarmed strike to move up to half your speed and basically get a free disengage, which doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Very situational, obviously, but if an enemy closes in on you, before they get a chance to attack you, you could use your reaction to spend the Bardic Inspiration, get a free hit on them, I assume that timing works, and then you retreat without provoking opportunity attacks, move up to half your speed. So it only really works if an enemy has used most of their movement, right? Because you're probably only going to move about 15 feet. And then an ally of your choice within 30 feet can also do the same thing. They can move up to their speed using their reaction. You can either have them also retreat or have them move into place and basically swap places with you. Pretty darn useful. It does use your reaction, so that's only one time, but it does help you get out of a jam if people move up to you. And again, you can use that free attack, which is pretty fun, I think. Tandem footwork is, I think, a little bit less sexy, but whenever you roll initiative, You can spend a Bardic to give everyone within 30 feet a bonus to initiative based on that Bardic inspiration roll. We haven't seen another subclass that allows you to use Bardic to add to initiative. That's fine. Having the whole party go first, assuming they're within 30 feet, or going a bit earlier is a nice little addition. It's cool to get both those effects level 6 also. And then level 14 gives you evasion, which evasion is one of the best passive abilities I think in the game. It's a rogue signature ability. You get it, I think, a lot later than the rogue does. But whenever you are subject to having to make a dex saving throw for half damage, if you succeed, you instead take no damage and only half damage if you fail. Dexterity saves, probably the most common ones you're going to take. That's most traps. That's a lot of, monsters breathing fire on you and shit. And also, you can share it with any creatures within 5 feet of you. You can give them the evasion benefit. That is an amazing perk. Really, really cool. Granted, it's all passive, and my thoughts on passives are kind of like, well, they're really good to have, but I'd rather have like an active ability. But if you're gonna have a passive ability, an evasion that you can also share with somebody next to you is really nice. So kind of impressed with the way dance works. Completely new. Very strange that you suddenly just become this kind of half monk. You're still basically a spellcaster more than anything. But it's interesting. So I'm kind of digging the dance. College of Glamour. This one is from Xanathar's Guide to Everything and is mostly unchanged, I think. The Mantle of Inspiration now scales off of the actual dice, I believe, is a difference. Scales off Bardic Inspiration rolls, so it's a bit more random. This is the one where you grant temporary hit points to allies and then also allow them to move. I believe they spend their reaction to move without provoking opportunity attacks, which is kind of a theme that we're seeing. But Guiling Magic works a lot different, however, from the original counterpart. Now it's a triggered from casting enchantment or illusion spells. Whenever you cast one of those kind of spells, which are a lot of what your spells are, because you're the, I mentioned you're the supportive kind of crowd controller, you can force a target within 60 feet to make a whiz save and give them the charmed or frightened condition. Frightened probably being the most useful. Charmed makes it so they just won't attack you, which, I guess could be useful, and actually is useful for a later ability. But frightened means they also can't get near you, which is also a way of making them not attack you, but also gives them a better debuff, I think. They do get a chance to repeat the save. You can only use it once per long rest, however, but you can restore it by expending a use of your Bardic Inspiration, which I think is kind of interesting. A cool combo, and I would consider you casting a lot of enchantment or illusion spells, so I think this would come up a lot. It also feels a little more Bardy to me, where we're doing extra things based on your, proficiency with manipulating enemies, and I like the fact that it's both charmed and frightened. I think before it was only the charmed condition, and now it gives you a choice of those two buffs. Also, you always have charmed person and mirror image spells prepared. Both of those are pretty good. Mirror image, still a very good buff. It's changed slightly in the language, but it works effectively the same. It does not require concentration. It's a good defensive spell where basically whenever you're targeted, the enemy has a 50% chance of just hitting one of your duplicates instead of hitting you. So pretty good spell there. Level 6, Mantle of Majesty remains the same, which you enter this special, mode where you can cast Command as a bonus action, and you can keep doing it for a minute without expending a spell slot. So you just constantly cast Command as bonus actions. Command is a slept-on first-level spell that it basically means that you lose your turn. Like, you get to say a one-word thing to an enemy, and it gives you a bunch of, examples where it's like halt, or flee, or drop, or, I think, grovel or something. And all of those things involve the enemy doing that thing and then immediately ending their turn. So what basically is, Command is like hey, that enemy has to, skip their turn, which is a pretty big, it's not technically giving anybody a debuff, but they're losing their turn, which on big enemies can be devastating for the DM. Also, combos interestingly well with your other Beguiling Magic ability, because it says any creature charmed by you automatically fails its saving throw against the command. So you can kind of do this interesting combo effect. Same thing with the Beguiling Magic, where you can only do it once per long rest, which is a huge bummer, but you can restore it. Unfortunately, now it's no longer Bardic Inspiration. You can restore it by expending a level 3+ spell slot. So a lot more powerful there. But also, when you look at your level 3 spell slots versus being able to cast Command constantly, I don't know, it could be kind of interesting. And I really like the spell Command, so I'm digging this ability. And then level 14, Unbreakable Majesty is a once per short rest bonus action. You can force an enemy to make a charisma saving throw on any creature that's attacking. Basically, before it was kind of like the Sanctuary spell, I believe, which forced them to attack somebody other than you. Now it's just, hey, they attack misses completely and they don't get to hit you. So definitely better, and it comes back on a short rest. So a good defensive ability for College of Glamour. I like College of Glamour quite a bit. I never got to play it in 2014 edition, and I think it's just that much more interesting. And I like the way it combos, and it feels like you're specializing more in the things that I want the Bard to specialize in, which is doing those kind of crowd controlling abilities. Next up, we have the College of Lore. This is the default Bard. I think every class kind of has, a lot of class, I should say, feels like the default subclass you should take if you don't have a specific build in mind, I guess. And College of Lore is literally the exact same as it was in the 2014 book, where Cutting Words allows you to use your Bardic as a reaction, and see, how did it use reaction Bardic Inspiration to subtract the total, that's right, from an attack roll, ability check, or damage, effectively, you know, giving the same thing as Valor does, which is you can use it to increase your AC, but here you can use it to subtract a roll from an enemy doing a thing. That's fine. More words to use Bardic is always good. It gives you extra proficiencies with skills, which is really unnecessary because you're already going to be good with skills, I would say. Level 6, you get the magical secrets earlier, and just 2 different spells. You learn additional 2 spells from your choice, cleric, druid, or wizard spells. That's fine. And then level 14, you can use a Bardic. Whenever you make an ability check or attack roll and fail, you can use the Bardic to then add the number to the D20, turning the failure into a success. And on a failure, Bardic Inspiration isn't expended. Very, very nice uses of Bardic Inspiration. Again, it just feels like the default Bard doing all the things that you're normally doing, which is using a lot of cutting Bardic Inspiration, using your skills, and then you're already getting magical secrets anyway, but this gives you more magical secrets. So Lore is the least sexy Bard out of all of these, the least interesting, but it's also perfectly acceptable and fine because it just does everything that you want the Bard to do, I think. And last, we have the College of Valor. In the original 2014 book, this one is, again, I think pretty much the exact same, and is the interesting Bard hybrid between a fighter. Although now I think it's less interesting that the dance was introduced, because suddenly I think the hybrid monk is just a cooler idea than the hybrid fighter. So in this case, you gain, and again, you only had simple weapons and light armor. Now you gain medium armor, martial weapons, and shields. You can also use those as a spellcasting focus. And also new ways to use your Bardic Inspiration. Now a creature can use its reaction to add it to its AC, or they can use, as part of their attack roll, they can then spend the Bardic Inspiration to add it to their damage. So adding to AC is very similar to the Lore's ability to subtract from an enemy's attack. That's fine. Although I believe, I don't remember if did lore require a reaction when you did that on Cutting Words. Okay, it does. So it's a reaction either way. You have to do that. So that's fine. Level 6, you gain extra attack. That's only one level later than what a Marshal would at level 5. So you can attack twice. In addition, you have basically the Eldritch Knight feature of being able to cast a cantrip in place of one of your attacks. So finally, you can do the classic cool Skyrim thing of or Bioshock or something, where you wield 2 hands in front of you, and one has a weapon and one has like a spell ready, which I think is very cool, and I like that appeal quite a bit. In terms of cantrips, I think your best one is probably still Vicious Mockery, which is funny. You don't really actually need a hand, I guess, free for that one, but that also turns you into like the Guybrush, Monkey Island like duels where you're like, attacking with one and then you're shouting insults at somebody else. That'd actually be a fun use for a Bard. I'm calling it right now. Maybe a piratey Bard where you are the College of Valor. That's your whole thing, is you're doing the rapier with one hand and then you're just shouting insults with Vicious Mockery with the other. And level 14, it actually kind of increases that and says, instead of doing it in addition to having the extra attack, now anytime you cast a spell, you can make a weapon attack as a bonus action. So even further, you can now cast like Dissonant Whispers, for example, and have somebody like run away and then be able to attack as a bonus action. So I still like College of Valor. This is a really hard one to rank for me. I think they all set out to do different aspects of the Bard. To me, I think the number one, and again, this is not like what I think is most powerful, just what I think is most interesting and fun, and what I would want to play the most. I would probably put Glamour at my number one because it just has all those cool extra bard features, allows you to go into these, having command as a bonus action like every single turn or something, and then being able to combo off of certain, like, just using specific spells. To me is how I want to do the 5e bard and really lean into the crowd control, illusion, enchantment, magic. So I think Glamour is probably my favorite of those. Next for interest, gets really, really tricky here. I would probably say Valor. Again, I just kind of talked myself into it with the whole pirate thing. I would say, I'm literally changing this from my notes, by the way, because I didn't like my notes before when I was writing these down. I think Valor is going to be my number two. And then I think I'm going to say Dance as my number three, because it's just so interesting, and with the hybrid of the monk, there's some cool combos there, and the freedom of movement you have to be able to avoid getting hit is kind of cool, and also the free unarmed strikes. And I just think, dance fighting, what is that from? Zoolander, I think. Breakdance fighting is just kind of a funny character design. So I'd probably put lore at the bottom, which a lot of times I will put like the default subclass in the bottom, because I want my subclass to really play off of a different feature than the base class. And lore, I don't think does that. I think it's just, hey, you get all the normal bard stuff, just more of that. And again, I don't think any of these are bad necessarily, but I don't see myself ever necessarily playing lore versus one of these others. So I would probably go Glamour 1, Valor 2, Dance 3, and Lore 4. All right, so let's go over backgrounds next to see what my top 5 backgrounds for the Bard are. Backgrounds are a bit tricky. Charlatan is annoyingly the best one we have for skills. So Charisma is our number one. Sorry for ability scores. Charisma is our number one. That's what we should always try to look for, because we probably need to pump our charisma up by at least 1, if not 2, when we build our character. And then I would argue that Dex and Con are probably number 2 and 3. Dexterity is just a lot of good defensive abilities, and your initiative and all that. It's probably good for just most people who aren't wearing like super heavy armor and can just defend without it. And then Constitution, because of your, as a full caster, you want more hit points, first of all, always. I mean, everybody should want more hit points, but concentration saves are very big, and you don't have that proficiency, so having good Constitution. So you look at the Charlatan, and you've got Dex, Con, and Charisma. You think, oh man, this is fantastic. This is all the ability scores I could ever want to raise. But the feat is Skilled, which is not a great feat for the Bard. Skilled gives you proficiency in any 3 skills or tools. You've already got a ton of skill proficiencies as the Bard. You don't need the skilled feat. So unfortunately, I don't think Charlatan is a great move. You can, if you really rolled poorly, or and you need to have these specific bonuses, but I think you're going to find other backgrounds that are going to be better than Charlatan, even though even the picture, like, very much in the description, just, it sounds like you would be a very fun, like, bard type character, but I do not like the skill feat. By the way, I'm sure a lot of DMs will have a homebrew be able to swap feats for any other origin feats. I don't know if that would break anything too much. If they do, then Charlatan suddenly becomes a lot better, but until then, I don't necessarily like it too much. Acolyte, I'm not going to go over all these, by the way, just the ones I think are good. Acolyte does have Charisma, doesn't have the rest, unfortunately, but Magic Initiate Cleric is very nice. That gives us 2 Cleric cantrips and a free first level Cleric spell once per long rest. That's where we can take our Bless, our Shield of Fates, like the few, because again, I like the idea of being a supportive caster, and you don't quite have all the good Cleric first level spells, so I do think this would actually be a fine choice to take, and gives us the Charisma, as long as we also make sure we have good of the other stats, because Charisma is the only one that's unfortunately listed for here. Obviously, Entertainer obviously is going to be fantastic, kind of built for the Bard, although we don't, I think, give a crap about Strength necessarily, because I would argue Dex, even if you're not going to go, Dance, which not every Bard is going to go, you would still use finesse weapons, and finesse weapons allow you to use your dexterity versus your strength. Unless you're specifically maybe going College of Valor and want to be melee up front, then maybe Musician is not, or sorry, Musician. Entertainer is not quite as good. Musician is still an amazing feat, though, and it's obviously very thematic to the Bard. You don't need the extra, proficiencies in, performance and with instruments, but the Musician feat really gives you that Bard support and is a better replacement for the Song of Rest because it gives everybody heroic inspiration. Well, not everybody. It is scaled to your proficiency bonus. So I guess early game you're only giving 2 people heroic inspiration. But damn, you're suddenly giving out inspiration every short rest. That is just incredibly powerful. Such a good feat, and it does have charisma and dexterity in there. So Entertainer is still an amazing choice. Hermit, I think, is a good choice. Healer, maybe not quite as good of a feat as everybody wants it to be, but it does make our healing spells better by letting us, let's see, roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore the spell or this feat's battle. You can re-roll if it rolls a 1, so kind of the, what is it, the lucky feat, I guess, for specifically for healing. Obviously, if you've got a cleric, you've got a druid or somebody who's a better healer, you don't really need this one, but charisma and constitution, both really good pluses to have, and wisdom could be a nice one to shore up a weakness as long as you've got a decent dexterity. So I think Hermit, very strange choice for a bard thematically, though. I don't know why Hermit gives you charisma. That makes no sense to me. I guess charisma could be considered like, oh, well, it's not necessarily your like social skills. It's just like your willpower and your presence, which maybe is a hermit emerging from isolation. You've got this like just, maybe you're just like this rugged, sexy, like brawny person or something. I don't know. Or you're a fairy princess on a tower. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around why hermit equals charisma. Maybe somebody has a better idea of that than me, but it still seems a little strange, but it's there. So we're looking at hermit as a possible choice for the bard. I also think merchant is a good choice for the bard. Merchant has constitution and charisma, which are both good abilities, and lucky is still a very, very good feat. Lucky allows us to re-roll. Let's see, specifically, when you roll a d20 for a d20 test, you can spend 1 luck point to give yourself advantage on the roll, or you can also confer another creature to have a disadvantage on a roll. You have luck points equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain them on a long rest. Very good skill to have. Also feels a little supportive because you can, grant another creature disadvantage who's attacking an ally, for example. Nope, sorry, it does say against you. Never mind. It's only, yeah, it makes sense. Only you're lucky. You can't confer your luck to others. But still a very good feat. I think a lot of people could benefit from. Basically, Merchant's going to be good for anybody who cares about these ability scores, charisma, intelligence, and constitution, which is anybody who uses charisma and intelligence, basically, because everybody likes constitution. So Merchant for the bard. And then I would consider also Wayfarer as a good one because it also has lucky, also has charisma, and also has dexterity. Probably a little bit better for the bard than merchant overall. So let's go over my ranking real quick. You can probably guess based on the ones that I've just talked about, but I would rank as the number 1 entertainer. It's got dexterity and charisma, and musician feat is just fabulous, and obviously it's practically built for the bard. Number 2, I would say, is Wayfarer, charisma, dexterity, and the lucky feat. Number 3 is merchant, also with the lucky feat, and also with charisma, this time constitution instead of dexterity. The healer, or sorry, I wrote healer. I meant to say hermit, which includes healer, because it's got charisma, constitution, and I think adding that little bonus to your heals allows you to use the medic kits also. It's, it just adds to the supportive nature of the bard, I think, is a good choice. And then acolyte for the same reason, where it gives you spells this time instead of just making your healing spells better. And Cleric's got good cantrips and has some good first level spells that you can choose from to bolster your supportive abilities, and also has that charisma ability score in there. So those are my top 5 backgrounds. Let's talk about species. So with species for the bard, I think that I like the spellcasters the most, the ones that include free spellcasting. So with that regard, we're going to look at the elf first, because the elf gets free, because species no longer has the ability changes, right? So we don't have to look at the ones that like only give you charisma, for example, because we need those stat bonuses. Instead, it really opens up the playing field to like just which specific abilities do we like the most, and does that matter for our build? Give advantage on saving throws to end the charmed condition is fine. Proficiency and extra skills we probably don't need, but at this point we're just going to have the best skills ever. But mostly we get free spells at level 3 and level 5. Spells that I think the bard already gets some of these level 3 spells. In fact, I think we get all 3 of them. Let me check real quick on Fairy Fire. Is that level 2 or level 1? That's level 1. Okay, so we already get Fairy Fire. I'm pretty sure we get Detect Magic and Longstrider, but Darkness, Misty Step, Pass Without Trace are all really good supportive spells, as well as having some fun extra cantrips. So I like the Elf option just for those extra spellcasting capabilities. I would also argue the Tiefling for the same reason. Free spells is free spells. Tiefling was always a good one for Bard because they had the extra charisma. But in this case, you get free Thaumaturgy, and you get like False Life, Hellish Rebuke, Hold Person, a lot of spells. I guess Hold Person I think was already there. Ray of Enfeeblement is good, Ray of Sickness. And then Resistance to damage I always really like having. Also, Firebolt, very good cantrip to have if you want a more aggressive elemental. In fact, all of them really add those kind of abilities. Not a lot of damaging cantrips for the Bard. So especially if you want to play like a Valor Bard, for example, this could be a really fun combo if you want to have that, again, I'm picturing that Skyrim thing of having the weapon in one hand and the spell, in the other and be able to fire those off. I think the Tiefling would work out very well for that. Also consider the Aasimar. The awesome Aasimar. They have extra healing. I believe their stuff scales off charisma, which is going to be good for you. At least the Necrotic Shroud does. Let's see, look at the Aasimar. This is the new one, by the way, from the previous edition of D&D. Yeah, Charisma is your spellcasting, well, for light. I don't know why that fucking matters. When you reach level 3, you can transform as a bonus action and then enter one of these 3 forms below. You can deal extra damage when you attack. You're probably not attacking too much as a bard, but a lot of your stuff could be bonus action things that you could be attacking. Wings, flying speed, obviously good for anybody. This is what I was thinking of, though, the Necrotic Shroud. Creatures allies within 10 feet, you must succeed in a Charisma saving throw, which scales off your Charisma modifier, or have the Frightened condition until the end of your turn. It's too bad it doesn't add the Charmed condition, because you could really combo that. There was a different one that had Charmed, and you could combo that with your Glamour ability, but, giving out those kind of debuff effects to enemies, I think, works very thematically with the Bard. Then it gets, so definitely those 3, it gets a little bit murkier for there. I don't actually think Human is normally a good choice for anybody, but especially if you take Musician, you don't really need the free inspiration. Skillful, you really don't need another proficiency in skills. And then an extra Origin feat is fine, I guess, but I think there's other classes that benefit more from having all those different extra Origin feats. So I wouldn't necessarily look at Human. Orc's abilities, I don't think you need the free dashing to move around too much. Goliath can be very fun, and it'll be a fun just playing against tight for a bard. In fact, I think that's a really neat idea. But getting bigger or dealing extra damage is normally not that good. There are some good Goliath ones in there, though, like the lineages where you can reduce damage or you can just teleport around as a Misty Step, for example. Gnome, advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, and getting some extra. It doesn't really get spellcasting, but you do get some extra cantrips, which is fine. I think I would include as my bottom 2 the dwarf, just because of the resistance to poison and also the extra hit points are going to be pretty solid. And I think finally the halfling, because they get their own built-in luck. And you get a free, you have advantage on saving throws to avoid the frightened condition, so same as the elf with Charmed. And you can take the hide action when you're a little small. I think it's nice to playing a smaller species as well, so you're not targeted as much, maybe. Because you will be doing a lot of concentration spells as a bard. If you're playing a bard like how I would play a bard, which is playing a lot of concentration spells, playing those smaller species might be better. So my top 5, what I would consider would be Tiefling, Elf. God, I don't know. I might put Aasimar above Elf, actually. Let's go Tiefling, Aasimar, Elf, and then Halfling and Dwarf, I think, is my top 5 species for the Bard. All right, if you've stuck around this long, it's time to build our new 2024 Bard. And I really don't know what I'm going to do here. We're just going to do it all. What is the most interesting Bard to use for... let's see, we want the D&D 2024 Bard. And we're going to start at level 3, which is how the book recommends if you've played D&D before. But I think we're going to wait and choose our subclass at the end. Once we get everything else rolling. And I am going to roll dice also as part of this. All right, so species. I I think I have an idea of what I want to use. So maybe, maybe elf is what I'm picturing. Scroll down to elf. I don't know what kind of elf. Let's see. Does it make me choose my sub? What do they call it? What do they call it? It's a lineage, right? That they call the other one. Nope, they don't. Okay. I'll pick that at some other time, I guess. Background. I may need to change this depending on how I roll, which I really wish they would have you roll first for anything else. But let's just choose entertainer for now, because that's just, I think, so solid. It should be the default for bards everywhere, because the musician's feat is really good and the stats are very good. So let's select entertainer, but depending on what our role is, we may need to change that. All right, so we've got musical instrument proficiencies. We've got the musician feat, which we like a lot. All right, so now entertainer would normally allow us to upgrade strength, dex, and charisma. So we're gonna roll. Roll for our stats. We rolled really bad for our barbarian. Let's see if we can do better. Roll all. All right, we got a 10, 11, 16, 12, 15, and 13. These are fabulous. This is much better. My goodness. My lowest is an 11. Or, sorry, my lowest is a 10. So I have no negatives. And highest is a 16. That is great. That is great. A lot of odd numbers, which we could shore up. We could start with an 18 charisma if we wanted to. That would mean we'd have to increase our dex by 1. So we could start with an 18 charisma and a 16 dex, which would leave us with a 13 con. This is not a bad idea. So we go 16 charisma. We go 15 dex. This does combo well with our background. We then choose charisma as our +2. So that's a start with an 18, which is pretty awesome. And then we're going to add 1 to our dex, which gives us a 16 dex, which is pretty awesome. We're going to take a 13 con. Hopefully we can get a feat at some point. Maybe that would be a pretty attractive. Gives us a +1 to con. In fact, maybe the chef feat, I think, allows us to increase that. Would be very nice. And then no negatives on the others. I'm thinking a 12 for intelligence to add to our skills would be pretty good. And then we'll just go 11 and 10 on wisdom and strength. Wow, what great, just absolutely great rolls there. Fantastic. And the reason my dex is so high is because I'm thinking I might go dance with this one. So skill, proficiency, choice. Our elf keen senses gives us skill. So entertainer gives us acrobatics and performance. We definitely don't need those. And then our elf skill gives us insight, perception, or survival. Let's do perception. So we don't need acrobatics for, yeah, we can just choose anything. We've already got performance. Let's choose, I don't know, Arcana. Let's choose persuasion. And how about sleight of hand? Maybe have, picture a dancer like, or deception. Deception would be, let's go deception. Because our charisma is going to be really good. And then our proficiency at level 2, or expertise, allows us to basically double down what we're really good at. So clearly we want to do that with performance and probably persuasion. Bard tool proficiencies. They give you all the different tools that we have. I don't know. Just pick various, the drums, the bagpipes, flute, or any woodwind instrument. That gives us all of those. Instrument proficiencies. I think it's already... Oh, entertainer gives us even more. That's right. Jesus. Crazy. All right. I'm not sure what it's asking me here when it comes to entertainment, musical proficiency. I think that's done, except we have to go back and choose our subclass. Oh, right. Spells. Spells is a thing. All right. So spells. There's going to be way too many here to choose from because it includes everything. And unfortunately, I don't believe Roll20 allows you to filter. So I have to look for the 2024 tag. to take any cantrips. I think is Friends better now? Friends has got to be better. Wisdom saving with a charmed condition. The target is automatically a humanoid. If you're fighting, if you cast a spell when the spell ends early. When the spell ends, the target knows it was charmed by you. I mean, it's still kind of appropriate for Bards to take Friends, even though very limited use, I think, since they get pissed off afterwards, or at least it assumes they get pissed off. Let's see, message. Ooh, Minor Illusion and Prestidigitation are both fun. You don't see us need. I mean, Vicious Mockery you should take, but I don't think I'm actually going to take damaging cantrip. Let's take Minor Illusion. And then for spells, there was a recommended button. For spells, Bane, Charm Person will definitely take. Can I just click the plus button? Yes, I can. We got Charm Person. I think we're gonna take Command is pretty appropriate. You can tell I really like the illusion and enchantment spells. Cure Wounds. I don't know what the rest of my party's gonna be. So maybe I should take Healing Word instead of Cure Wounds. Although I do have, bonus action for a Bard is Bardic Inspiration. Fairy Fire is a good one. Light everybody up. And Disguise so fun. So fun. Take like no damaging abilities. How about that? We'll be a super supportive Bard. Level 2 gives us one level 2 spell. We have to scroll down to get to level 2. No, it still says level 1 spells. I'm not sure why it's not letting me choose. Oh, I see. It's just additional level 1 spells, maybe? I thought, okay, there we go. This one, that's right. So at level 2, you get to choose one more level 1 spell, and at level 3, you get to choose level 2 spell. So our next, let's take, no, Disguise Self. He's going to be 2 pick me. He's not going to want to disguise himself. Longstrider. Sleep could be like a lullaby. Go with that. All right, and then level 3 is our first level 2 spell. Blindness can be fun. Which I don't think takes concentration anymore. These are just all first and second level spells. Crown of Madness. Take Thoughts, Disguise. Some of these are just all first and second level spells mixed together, I think. Thrall, I don't think is still very good. I honestly haven't done a deep dive of the spells, but I have glanced over, and then I did that video where I kind of went over everything. Let's do Hold Person. Let's just paralyze somebody. All right, so that's the spells. So now let's go back, and I think we're actually going to choose Dance. Because we've got pretty good... I mean, our unarmored defense is going to be pretty darn good, I think. We've got a good dexterity, and our armed strike is going to be powerful. So let's review. And our elf dancer... it's going to be Moonwalker. Right? As a person who's been working their way up, just a classic, performance bard, but specifically known for just rhythmic, amazing dances that everyone is super into and is like setting trends, all across insert relevant city in the campaign here. But our unarmored defense is going to be an AC of 14, which is probably better than a lot of light armor is going to do, but we definitely want to shore up that constitution when we can. But having a +4 charisma at the very start is very nice. I definitely want to see what our skills are going to look like with this +1 and all those abilities. So let's see. Let's go ahead and, I don't know, the unfinished steps was something about the proficiency with musical instrument. I don't think we care. Let's click save and exit and see if we can check out our character. So yeah, look at these skills. This is insane. We've got, our worst is a +1, which is like athletics, insight, medicine. We have a +2 in all the intelligent ones. Our proficiency ones, like Arcana's a +3, Deception's a +6, Performance and Persuasion are both a +8. We're at level 3, keep in mind. Acrobatics is a +5. That's all fantastic. Plenty of good support skills. An unarmed strike, this is not unfortunately set up correctly, but it should be a, let's see, if I uses our dexterity and our proficiency bonus, it should be a +5 to hit with a DC, with a 6, a D6 for the dice, because our Bardic Inspiration dice, plus our dex, so a D6 +3. So pretty darn good for an extra unarmed strike, and that would probably be our go-to. And it's breakdance fighting. It's you like just dancing around and just hitting people and whacking them before they have a chance to, respond to that. And then at level, I think at 6, we have the ability to do that free reaction and kind of disengage from people. So this could be a really fun like dance type character. I have no idea how this character would actually play, but I would definitely be into building the bard similar to this, where it's very, using all your spells to be a supportive caster, because I think that's what the bard should be, is the party favorite. You've got the musician feat to add inspiration to every single short rest, and then you've got a charm person, command, hold person, and sleep to really debuff everybody. I probably should have taken more support. I guess I took a bunch of crowd controlling instead, but that's the other end of the coin, is you can take a bunch of supportive spells to help your party, but that's also where Bardic Inspiration comes into play. But also you'll be really good outside of combat with performing all these various skills, and clearly probably going to be the face of the party when it comes to social encounters because of your awesome charisma score. So I think Bard is a weird pick in D&D in general, and I think if you probably have a sorcerer, especially, you probably don't need a bard, because they're also a full caster who uses charisma and will probably be the face. They would have more limited spellcasting, be more DPS involved, but I don't know. I don't think you really need both a sorcerer and a bard. If you don't have a sorcerer, though, and especially if you don't have a wizard, because the wizard's the other one that probably has good skills because of the intelligence, I think bard is a decent choice. But even when it comes to the game telling you like, oh, if you don't have, here's the core team of fighter, rogue, cleric, and wizard. If you don't have this one, you can substitute with that one. 3 of those were like, oh, you could also technically substitute this as the bard. So it's just a very weird like tertiary pick that's not a core concept anybody is necessarily considering, I guess. But the way I think you can build a different bard with these different subclasses is pretty interesting. But to bring it back home, I am still crushed that I really want to play a bard like some other video games have done a very good job, and even previous editions of D&D have maybe done a more interesting job of doing the bard and the way the Bardic Inspiration and all that works. All right, thank you everyone for watching this class video breakdown and for making our own bard character. You can look for more D&D 2024 content here on the channel, as well as my usual live streams and reviews. You can support my work at patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brennan, Jensen, Eclectic Roleplayer, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Nathan, Kevin Presley, Counselor Andrew, The Reldrin, Stephanie, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Limpy Spud, Sharni, Warden, Harold, Unimon, LLC, Jamie, Reese, Tom, AJ, They're Eating the Dogs, Luis, and Caleb, and Gold patrons RPG Paper Grams, Pretty Boy, and you, Lizard Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Fazakatora, Scott Ruffus, Karen, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support.